The mission is simple: to help high achievers naturally eliminate emotional and physical obstacles so they can optimize their life for higher achievement. Welcome. You have just entered the Genesis Zone. Good day and welcome to the Genesis Zone show. This is Dr. Brian Brown. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on this beautiful Thursday. Have you ever been on a long road trip and you simply wanted someone else to do all the driving? I know I have. I've been guilty of that. And there's nothing wrong with that, actually. But in life, asking someone else to take the proverbial steering wheel of your vehicle, your life, is like saying to them, hey, I'm trusting you with my life. Do what's best for me. Don't wreck me. I'll just be hanging out over here as a casual observer. Now, occasionally it's good to be in that position. For instance, when you're flying a commercial jet going from point A to point B, it's probably a good idea to have a professional pilot at the wheel, right? But in our everyday life, how do we recognize when it's not good anymore? When it's not good to have somebody else at the steering wheel? And better yet, what do we do about it? Well, today we're going to explore this in a little bit more detail. Do you remember when you were in elementary school, like first grade-ish, maybe even kindergarten, and you had to walk down the hallway? Say you were going to the cafeteria, or you were going to the gymnasium, or you were going to the auditorium. You had to walk down the hallway with your class in a single file line. And you remember your teacher saying in the back of your mind, Joey, get back in line. Sally, don't talk. And there was all this control, but you had to follow these rules, and I remember friends who were in other classes and their teacher would make them walk only on the colored tiles. You remember those 12-inch by 12-inch tiles that there would usually be like solid white floors, white tile, and then on each edge of the hallway there'd be these colored tiles, and like in one strip going along the edge of the wall. And those teachers would be even more strict and say, oh, you have to stay on the colored tiles. Now, do you remember being in school? It doesn't matter what grade it is at this point, and you had assigned seating. You were being told when to stand, when to sit, when you can go to the bathroom, when you can eat, when you can get a drink of water, when you can go outside, when you can leave for the day, when you can change classes. On one hand, it sounds pretty rigid, right? But on the other hand, it sounds like establishing order in a setting that has the great potential to have a lot of disorder if there's no rules set. Now, in the past couple of years, we've all experienced this on a global scale, these rigid rules and things like that. So what do we make of it? At its root level, things like this condition us to respond a certain way. And dare I say, they condition us to not be the heroes of our own life, of our own journey. They condition us really to be sheep, to be followers. As I said, there are certain times where it's great to be a sheep. It's great to be a follower, like flying on a commercial airplane and following the pilot instead of trying to fly the plane yourself. But in the grand scheme of life, our ultimate goal is to become the hero of our own journey. I think Maslow, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, called this self-actualization. So just a really technical term that you don't need to be worried about. It's a technical term that he used for, lack of a better way of saying it, becoming the hero of your own journey. Now, you see, I think too many of us have fallen into the conditioning, even as adults, that we must follow, no matter who that is or what that is. Therefore, there's no way, as long as we're following, for us to be the hero of our own journey in pretty much any aspect of our life. Now, I'm not going to get into some huge philosophical debate. That's not what this is about. But what I am going to talk about is becoming the hero of your own health and wellness journey. For far too long, we've silently been led around like sheep when it comes to our health and wellness. We're conditioned and led around by big pharma companies and their commercial advertising. And if you don't believe me, everywhere we turn, whether it be the internet or print ads or television, we are inundated with advertising for mood altering medications. In fact, here's what I recently discovered. By the time a child leaves home, they will have viewed over 2,200 advertisements for mood altering medications on TV alone. Now, we're also conditioned and led around by well intentioned health professionals. And on this note, I have a confession to make. When I first started practicing psychiatry, I was bound and determined to save the world. I knew it was my calling. I was called to save the world. And within 12 years, guess what? I was burnt out. So I switched over to functional medicine, thinking, well, first of all, it was a personal journey. I had some issues going on with myself. I couldn't find answers, and I needed to make that transition. But I was also burnt out on the professional side because I had been functioning as the savior of the world for way too long. So I switched over to functional medicine, and guess what? I carried my bad habits with me. I did it again. I mean, I had all of these new skills, all of these new ways of helping other people achieve deeper healing through the extra education that I took in went through and in functional medicine training. So why not robustly share these new techniques, these new strategies, these new skills with the world, right? So thrusting myself into the hero position again for the second time, it only took me 9 years to burn out. Now, can you say glutton for punishment? I was a glutton for punishment. I'll admit it. Now, this is when I decided the third time's not going to get me. And I decided that I needed to do some deep personal work. And I figured out a way, and I figured out why, excuse me, I keep stepping into that same pile of crap, for lack of a better way of putting it. I began to listen to folks from all walks of life, all professional walks of life, who had been through that same exact thing in their respective professions. You see, it's not just isolated to health professionals. All professionals that help others do something, whether they be attorneys or accountants or engineers, for God's sake, I mean, whatever it is, you have this potential that you can fall into that savior of the world complex. And in the process of listening to those who had gone before me and kind of figured it out, I learned 4 key things that I'm going to share with you today. And here's what they are. The first thing I learned is that not everyone wants a rescue plan. Some people are perfectly fine staying right where they are. Now, I personally don't understand this, but some people love staying where they are. And I've learned to be, and I've learned to be okay with that professionally. It's taken me a while to get there, but if a person chooses to stay in that treacherous situation, they don't want to be rescued, you know what? That's their personal choice. The second thing I learned is this: there are some major flaws to being the hero. I mean, have you ever watched a movie or read a book where there is a hero character involved? You know, a hero relies on strength, and usually a hero has some signature way of miraculously helping others. You know, in the Marvel comic or DC comic universe, you might call it a superpower. And these things, these superpowers, these strengths are their premium commodities that they exchange, services for. And the sad thing is, we all know what happens with every superhero who has a superpower. There is always, always, always a kryptonite somewhere lurking in the background. And if I'm being completely honest, the kryptonite in this situation is ego. Now, also, when someone steps into the role of hero, they are always dependent on the person they're helping. In other words, they need the proverbial damsel in distress. And without the damsel in distress, there is no hero. And lastly, and even bigger than the last thing that I just mentioned with the damsel in distress, guess what always follows the hero? Trouble, conflict. Trouble and conflict always follow the hero. Without trouble and conflict, there's nothing to do. The story doesn't exist. The story doesn't move forward. It's boring. There has to be a villain. There has to be an enemy to fight. All right. The third thing that I discovered was that the best position to be in is the trusted guide position. Instead of a superpower, the guide is there to share wisdom and, well, give guidance when guidance is asked for. Now, notice I didn't say give guidance and leave it at that. They give guidance when guidance is asked for. There's no ego here. There's no need to have a villain to fight or a damsel in distress to save. And there's certainly no need to have a superpower that can be brought down by a glowing green rock like kryptonite. There's a powerful calm in being the guide, an inherent trust and simple sophistication. And that's the role that I stepped into 3 years ago. Now, here's what's cool about that. And it's also the fourth thing that I learned. My clients get to be the hero of their own journey. They get to develop their superpower. They get to fight the villain, which, by the way, is always the challenger issue that they're trying to defeat in their body and their mind. And they get to rescue the damsel in distress, which is their own self. But guess what? They have the power and the strength to do it. With a little guidance, they can easily step into that role and take control and take charge of their situation. Now, I found that some people are just fed up with being conditioned and having these conditioned responses we've been trained to have ever since we were in kindergarten. But they're fed up with it from a health consumer standpoint. And they naturally and happily step right into the hero role, becoming the hero of their own journey. But guess what? They cannot step into the role of becoming the hero of their own personal journey unless I step out of the way. I have to remove myself out of the hero role. I have to move into the guide role and allow them to fill that position and allow them to step into becoming the hero of their own personal journey. Now, on the flip side of that coin, I have worked with some clients who truly seem to they truly seem to want healing for their body. They are not like the people I mentioned in the first lesson that I learned above, that they don't want a rescue plan at all. They're not like that. They do want a rescue plan. They do want healing for their body. The people I'm talking about here, I truly believe want help. But for whatever reason, they are afraid to step into the role of hero for their own journey. They are sharply resistant to being that hero for themselves. They want me to still be the hero. And they constantly power struggle with me trying to pull me back into that role. I could give you example after example of what I mean with that, but and I'll go ahead and give you one example. A very, very common thing I get. It'll be around the holidays or it'll be around vacation time. Someone will invariably call and they'll say, "Oh, I've put on 11 pounds and I can't get it off no matter what I do." And and they'll say, "What you're doing is not working," talking to me. And I'll say, "Wait a minute. Let's go back and review where you've been over the past week, over the past 2 weeks." Well, I've been traveling and I've been on vacation. And I say, how have you been eating? How have you been hydrating? Have you been exercising? Well, the answer is no, no, and no. And what have you been eating? Well, I've been eating all the wrong things. What have you been drinking? Well, I've been drinking a lot of alcohol. Well, there could be a reason there that you've gained 11 pounds, and it could be because of what you've done, not because of anything we haven't done. And that's just one example of a power struggle. That's an easy example. There's some deeper examples that are more psychologically rooted, but I think you get the gist. Can I be completely and utterly honest with you right now? I'm going to trust that the answer is yes. When the above example that I just gave you plays out in real life, where somebody's really resistant to stepping into their own hero role, and they're constantly trying to pull me back out of the God position into that hero role, it's a recipe for disaster. Because I've done my time in the hero role myself with my own personal journey. And I've also done it for thousands of other clients over a good portion of my career, all except the last 3 years. And I'm done with that scenario. I'm done with robbing other people of their joy of being their own hero. I can't do it anymore. I'm not going to do it. It's a compassionate choice that I will stick by until the day I retire at this point. You see, you have to be the hero of your own journey. If you don't want to be in that role, or you're too afraid to be in that role, or you don't feel like you can be in the role of being the hero of your own journey, guess what? It's perfectly okay. And you need to hear that from me. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. It's perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with you, but I'm not the person to be on that journey with you. It doesn't mean that there isn't someone out there who will step into that role, because quite frankly, there are tens of thousands of health professionals out there who are ready and willing, but not me. I want the highest and best good for you. I want you to find your voice. I want you to be the hero of your own journey. And for all my clients and that I see from this point forward in the future, I will guide you. I'll be right there by your side every step of the way up that path, up that icy, craggy, rocky path up the mountain to the summit of Mount Everest, if that's where you want to go. But in the end, you will be the hero. You will be the one who gets to write your name in that journal log at the summit of the mountain as having done the work and having made it to the summit. You will. It's all you. You are enough, period. And I believe in you. Now, that's all I've got for today. That's it. That's a heavy message, isn't it? I know it's a heavy message, and I'm cool with that, because that's a message that's timely. That's a message that we all need to hear, guys. We are the heroes of our own journey, and nobody else should be put in that role. Now, I do have a favor to ask. We believe at the Genesis Zone that the message that we have to share is life-changing. We just believe it. We see it. We see the results clinically in the office every single day and with the clients that we work with. And we would love to get the message out there. We want to partner with you. You can do one simple thing to help us. If Apple is your platform, get on Apple and subscribe to our podcast, this podcast, the Genesis Zone podcast. If you're on Spotify, subscribe on Spotify. Whatever platform you use, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Whatever the case may be, you can help us out simply by subscribing. If you want to go one step further and you want to write us a little review, give us a star rating, would love that as well. But that's totally up to you. But subscribe to our feed. Now tune in next Thursday at noon Eastern Standard Time for our next In the Zone segment, where I'll be sharing the latest research and my insights on that research as it relates to optimizing your physical and emotional wellness journey, as it relates to you becoming your own hero of that wellness journey, and as it relates to optimizing your genes so that you can better be in that hero role with your own superpowers. I'm most informed, most trusted, and most grateful you spent this time with us today. Until next time, stay in the zone. I'm Dr. Brian Brown.